All righty. Oh man.
Well, hello there.
Oh, hey Liz.
Hello. This is so awesome. I just finished watching the premiere on YouTube and I was like, dang, I forgot that this sounded amazing.
Well, that's good news. I'm happy you liked it.
It was incredible. Like that was the first time that I saw the finalized thing or heard the finalized thing. So it's really cool when a dream comes together, you know?
That was your last, or that was your first time hearing the actual master, the final product.
Yeah, the
It came
actual
out great,
masters,
didn't
yeah.
it?
It came out amazing.
Well, you guys have the worst job when it comes to contributing because you're like the first people to lay down your tracks, and it's
Totally.
on these just bootleg scratch tracks, singing into like my computer. Acoustics that are
Right.
offbeat. You have no other production, no keys, no nothing. So it's like, wow, this song is terrible.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't terrible, but let's be honest, the vocals make every song, you know? Like
Oh
the
man,
vocals is where the magic is at. And so getting to hear the song finalized with the vocals on there, everything pristine, it was like, oh man, this is a really great song.
I always thought the bass player made every song.
That's right. It's true. They hold
Jesse,
it
I
all together.
I can't hear you. He's working on it. He's sporting
Oh,
the Seahawks though.
I like that hat, Jesse.
It's all right.
You look so official.
We're gonna get this squared away. I'm seeing. I'm pulling up the live chat. Okay.
I'm going to try to fix this real
Boom.
quick. So I'm going to change my mic settings and hopefully have something for you in a second.
No problem. Sounded good there. But I can't wait to ask you about the. Yeah, this is totally fine. So hey, first things first. Let's just address the punching bag.
Yeah. You want anytime you want to come over, feel free.
Can we pull out the nunchucks too? Because that's the real, like that's the real thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. I have these right here. Anytime I just want to go at the punching bag.
Listen, everybody who's
actually Jesse is TikTok famous at this point.
I was just going to say, you just need to follow Jesse on any kind of social media account. I did give you a huge plug last night, by the way, Jesse, with your guitar face videos, just so you know.
Thank you.
And as a reminder for everybody watching, if you have yet to participate in indulging in guitar faces, Jesse Phillips on YouTube, just probably stop what you're doing right now and go watch that instead.
Wow.
Definitely.
Well, after this conversation, I'll go make sure it's still up.
It is. I watch them at least. I watch at least one a week.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you for feeding my children. I don't have any kids.
Well, hey, let's get to some intros, and I want to make the best use of our time. And I'm just so grateful, first of all, for you guys being on the project, and then especially grateful to have you guys tune in tonight. I am watching the chat, and so if some questions and thoughts come up later, I can address this. But I thought we'd at least get started. And Jesse, we can start with you. Why don't you just introduce us to yourself? Tell us a little about yourself, your family, your life, what you got going on right now.
Yeah, well, my name is Jesse. I'm 32 years old. I'm a Virgo. I'm just kidding. I literally have no idea what sign I am. But I live close to Nashville, a little south of Nashville. I'm a musician and went to Liberty University, like the Seahawks, and that's about it.
And you also, I actually think you did a little acoustic on this track too. Is that right? You did some acoustic, but electrics on all of them, and you did bass on all these tracks as well.
Yeah, bass, electric, and on this one, I think was the only one that there are a couple lead liney acoustic kind of things going on. Yeah.
Yep. In fact, I think the words were, "Hey Jesse, I need some Shane and Shane stuff, please."
I think Shane and Shane was definitely in a couple texts. So
if not all of them.
Yeah, which, hey, I love change.
Brooklyn Tab made every text message that we had. Yeah, for sure.
Yes.
Well, we're going to talk about, some of our glory days and career stuff here in a little bit too. But Liz, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself and introduce yourself?
Yeah. So my name's Elizabeth. I live in Nashville, Tennessee. Been here for about 7 years now, doing the full-time drumming thing, and I'm also currently in grad school for a master's of arts in clinical mental health counseling. So kind of looking to merge the two worlds. Mental health is such a huge thing, and in the touring realm, like it plays such a big role in what artists are able to do, and even just how creative they're able to be. If they're not well in their minds, it really does affect what they put out as well. And so, just kind of passionate about both, passionate about music, passionate about mental health, and enjoying this time of getting to be a little bit more home during the pandemic, but also excited to get out there and play music too.
Well, you just recently made a post after like a year off of social media, right? And it was a really beautiful post. So if you can actually check out Liz's Instagram, but she just shared her heart. It was pretty amazing. And I'll tell you what, Liz, every encounter I've had with you, I think it's a great pursuit, and praying that certainly the Lord would use you in all of that. Amazing. And congratulations. You had at the time said you had 5 classes left. How many do you have left now? Still 5?
Yeah, so there's 3 left after I finish this semester. So getting close to the finish line, almost there.
Hey, I'm in my final 3 of my MDiv. Boom.
Yes, high five to that, for sure.
It's great. That is great news. Well, Jesse, you mentioned Liberty. So all 3 of us, that's how we all met. And, I think Liz is the only one maybe who's matured since this. I'm just kidding, Jesse. And I'm kidding myself. I definitely matured, I think, maybe. But yeah, so we all went to Liberty. We met each other there. In fact, what year did you graduate, Jesse?
My undergrad was 2011 and my master's was 2014.
And Liz?
I was 2013.
Okay. I thought you guys were my year. Man, I guess not.
I was with your sister.
I was with Charity. You were with Charity. I shot her a text and I said, hey, I'm going to be on the horn with Jesse and Liz. I was going to so I think she's probably watching. But so Liz, actually, that's a great point. So we all played and we're part of ministry teams there at Liberty. And, Liz, why don't you start? What were you a part of? You obviously played with my sister.
Yeah, so I was on Awaken with your sister. And then I think when I came in, you had just graduated. You were on LU Praise and you had just finished out, right?
Yeah.
And then my second year, I kind of did this bouncing back and forth thing with Awaken and Exodus for that second year.
Yes.
And then finished out.
That's
on
right.
Awaken.
You did play with Exodus.
Yep.
Yeah. I still remember Awaken had a cut of Step by Step, the Hillsong version, didn't they?
Yeah. Man, that goes way back.
Way back. I loved that track. Yeah. Loved that track.
That was fun getting to do that record. Yeah, I totally forgot about that whole thing. But yeah,
my first year. Liz?
I need to find it. It's probably somewhere stashed in like all this old stuff from college. But ironically enough, well, the crazy thing is that record. So I didn't play guitar, but my first year at Liberty, I got roped into playing guitar for the ministry teams until a drumming position opened up. And so I remember just kind of like trying to keep up with your sister, Dave. I was like trying to keep up with Charity and be like, I totally suck on guitar. I'm so sorry. And just praying that she would have enough grace, because she's an incredible musician, and amazing singer, amazing pianist. So I was just trying to hold it down in some way, shape, or form on guitar until I could move over to drums.
It's funny you say that, because I actually have a faint memory of you on guitar. And I always thought that was a confused memory. And so you just solved, that's 10 years of mental health problems that I've had. You're already solving it. And Charity is a freak on the keys. I mean, my little sister Emily is amazing at keys too. My dad played in a group when he was a teenager growing up called the Singing Psalms, and they traveled upstate New York. But he's an amazing piano player too. My whole family, my older sister Audrey reminds me of Lauryn Hill and Alicia Keys. She can just sing her face off. And my mom is the faithful alto, who just sings the alto part of every song, every hymn. Yeah. And it's the best. But yeah, Awaken, those are good days. And Jesse, you played on Sounds and Campus, is that right?
Yeah, so my undergrad was Sounds of Liberty. And then when I actually moved to Nashville, did that like pop rock thing for a year, hated it, and then went back to Liberty and was on campus band then. But I feel like I've like played with almost, except for Awaken, I think I've played with every single group at some point or another. I felt like a grandfather at Liberty by the time I left, and I was on staff for a year too, and I was just like, they can't get rid of me. I'm just gonna be here.
Did you play with campus when Justin was leading?
Yeah. So Justin was the guy that actually called me because I was thinking about moving back to Virginia to be around community, just because I was pretty lonely in Nashville. I was like, I need good friends and godly influence in my life. And so I was just like, I'm gonna move back to Lynchburg. And as soon as Justin heard, he called me and asked me to play bass, which was funny because I didn't actually play bass at the time. And I was like, yeah, I'll play bass. Because kind of like Liz was like a guitar player just for a semester or whatever. I kind of jumped into the bass role, and it kind of stuck. After that, people thought I was a bass player. So 2012, I became a bass player.
You did.
Justin's fault. So.
And the funny thing is, he's so good at it that even in Nashville, everyone here knows him as a bass player.
It's crazy. Yeah, he just
reinvented himself.
You did. Yeah, I mean, you just
not intentionally. I still love guitar. And guitars.
Which is your preference?
Guitars. Definitely guitar, as far as like where I feel at home. But these days, I've played bass so much that like, I don't know, playing bass is second nature, and I just like the creativity of guitar when you dive into it and you're like dialing in tones and stuff. Sometimes for bass, you just like plug in a 1/4 inch and they're like, you're good. So I don't know. It unlocks different parts of the brain. So I enjoy both.
Well, you guys are both so talented. And I remember sitting in this office when I was on a FaceTime call with Josh Wood and was dreaming about, what could be with this project, and we knew that we wanted to get the best. Honestly, we wanted to make it really be an awesome project. And so I'm like, well, I know people, but I don't know that they want to do this with me. So like, I'm gonna take a shot in the dark. And so I put on my dream team. I'm like, I want to get Justin Ashley Kinsel, I want to get Jesse Phillips, I got Josh Wood, and I want to get Liz Chan. I'm like, it's never gonna happen. And I just prayed, called you guys. You're like, this sounds great. And you were just amazing. I mean, I still this day, I'm so grateful that you guys were a part of this project. It has exceeded even my hopes. And I mean, we just listened to Psalm 98. The track came out phenomenal.
Yeah, really awesome. Thanks for calling, dude. I think it's one of those things that I love working on projects that mean things. And so when you were like talking about scripture and like things coming directly from scripture, it was like, yes, this is a no-brainer. Like, plus it's working with you and Liz and Justin and Ashley and Josh, and it's like, yeah, like this is the easiest yes in the world. So
totally. And it was such a unique approach too, like the way that you kind of spelled it out for us, Dave. You were like, I'm basically taking exact scripture and I'm turning it into song. And I was like, that's really unique. And then the second thing was even just the thought of doing it over remote tracking and sending stuff to one another and being able to collaborate and say, okay, I'm going to put this together and then I'm going to trust Josh with the process after that. Like that is something that is totally new to me. And it was a really unique thing to be a part of. And I'm really grateful that I got to be a part of this type of experience where we could collaborate, even though we're literally states apart,
It's I mean, it really is neat and kind of full circle in the last decade. It is in many ways like a reunion EP in some ways. We all kind of brush shoulders at one point or another, and Liberty has its fingerprint on all of us. But just to see how God is using all of you in your different areas and callings and gifts and abilities is really encouraging. I'm really excited. Tomorrow night, Josh Wood is going to talk to us about his role in the project, the ministry. And Thursday night will be Justin and Ashley. I'm really excited to talk to them. And then Wednesday night, Dr. Kreider's joining me. And so we're bringing the man himself. Now, did you ever have Kreider for any classes, or did he leave and go to Southern at the time you guys came on the scene?
I had him for 3 classes, I think.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I'm jealous because I came in the year after he had left, and all I heard was, "Oh, you missed out on the best professor."
Oh,
it's true, you missed out.
I did. I clearly did.
He has had, hands down, one of the biggest impacts on my life. I mean, I love that brother so much. So Dr. Kreider, yeah, I mean, he's, even before he came to Liberty as a worship professor there, he had been serving in churches and teaching experience. And then he went to Southern Baptist Theological Seminary. And I believe he was the dean of the School of Music there, the Billy Graham School. He's a professor there, helped with doxology and theology and Norton Hall Band and all that kind of stuff. And now he's down in Fort Worth at Southwestern. He's actually currently the dean of the School of Church Music and Worship. But singing scripture and congregational worship and these types of projects are his heart. And I wanted him to be there because, you know, he, in many ways, and even indirectly with you, Liz, has influenced everybody who was a part of this project. And, you know, one of my biggest takeaways from Kreider is he says, don't let your gifts, don't let your abilities take you further than your character can sustain you. And he was just always a man who would look you in the face and say, what your congregation needs most from you is your personal holiness. And you're like, man, that's good. So I love Kreider. I'm so excited to have him on Wednesday. But let's talk a little bit about this project, this song specifically, and you guys, because you mentioned, Liz, the collaboration here. It was unique, right? It's like, hey, here's the ideas, here's the track, here's the roadmap. And literally, I want to talk a little bit about the breakdown of how this would happen for people listening, because I think they'll get a kick out of it, especially that you can do this states apart. So the song was written and I worked on some arrangement things here with Josh Wood, who we'll talk to tomorrow. And then basically I'd open up Logic and I would track acoustics, maybe 2 or 3 of them, not final acoustics. They wouldn't be the final acoustics. They'd just be scratch tracks. And then I would record just really quick my voice, and we would send it to Josh. And Josh would maybe throw a pad, a couple keys just to bring a little more oomph to it. And then it would go right to Liz first. And I remember texting you guys being like, hey, you cannot judge the acoustics and the vocals yet. And for my friends here who, like, you know, they get to hear along the way, I always start with this caveat, like, please don't judge where we're at yet in this, you know, this process. But Liz would literally get a raw, dirty, gross track with no dynamics, no nothing, and then just crush. Like the drums you just heard in Psalm 98, which are probably my favorite drum song, I think. She did that with nothing else, basically. I mean, it's just amazing. And my second favorite part on this song is verse 2. It might be my first. Verse 2, you go, like you take out this beat and it's just this hit with the snare, kick, snare, kick, snare. And then the second half, you do this filthy fill that always gets me pumped up. My wife knows it. And then you go into this straight up hip hop beat for like the last 2 measures of the verse. So when you guys are done watching this live video, go back, rewatch the lyric video, the second verse, and just listen to Liz. It's like, and then you sit there and you go, I remember when Josh sent me the track of the drums, I just sat there and I'm like, this is so good. But it takes some serious ability to be able to hear where the song is going to be before it's there to be able to play. So talk to us a little bit about that process, Liz.
Yeah, well, I will first say that it's an ode to a great songwriter, you know, because I feel like this song, for me as a drummer, it was pretty easy to just kind of be creative with it and knock it out. And I think that's because the song was really well written and it was well organized to the point where I kind of was able to anticipate what you were going for in every section, you know, even with the outro piece, like kind of just letting free and envisioning like what would it look like to kind of just have an outro vamp type of thing that got a little bit fun and a little bit loose, you know, like. And as I was tracking it, what I like to do, like I like knowing the order to a certain degree in my brain, but I like just doing 1 or 2 takes where I'm just throwing out ideas, kind of like paint on a canvas, you know. And I find that if I over listen to the song first before I hit record, or I overthink it, I'm going to come up with a really sterile track. It's not going to be creative. It's going to be very mapped out and very robotic. And so with this type of thing, which sometimes that is required, there are some recordings where you're like, okay, they need this to be very mapped out and just very, you know, locked in the grid type of thing. But with this, like knowing how creative you wanted it to be, knowing just kind of the fun feel, like you kept referencing Brooklyn Tab, you kept referencing Shane and Shane, and I know, like I've listened to Shane and Shane stuff through and through, and I love how creative their music is and how it just kind of flows, you know? And so I just thought, let me just take a stab at it and let me just throw out stuff, you know, here and there. And if there's something that I need to go back and edit or fix, I can do a second take and fly things in, you know? But really with this song, if I can remember correctly, I think it probably took like 3 takes. It was like, oh, that just fits right. It feels good, you know?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. You know, my vocal take only took 3 takes too. So
Well, I don't say that to brag. I say that because it's a good song. You gave me something to work with where I just felt like, man, this is already done. Like you, even though you, I mean, let's be honest here. Even though you're sending demos over, like I've received demos before where you're like, okay, we've got to do some songwriting on the spot here as I'm tracking, you know, like, but you came up with something that was just like, this song is done. It's finished. It translates over the demo to the point where I could understand exactly where you were going with it. And I felt like as a team, we were able to nail it, you know?
You guys did nail it. You did nail it. Yeah, I mean, you just sat right there in the pocket, Liz. You tore it up. Man, you tore a new pocket. That's what you did.
You should name your car the Pocket because you're sitting in it.
Oh, Jesse definitely has like 6 or 7 more of those up his sleeve.
Probably. Yeah.
All the non-musicians watching are like, "What's the Pocket? What's the Pocket?"
What's a Pocket?
Okay, so Jesse, now I actually want to talk to you about this because, and I'm going to read a portion of your text. I'll leave out the really nice things, you know, that you said about me and things like that. But you said something amazing in a text message that we had by the 3rd pass of putting electrics on the song.
Yeah.
And so, first of all, I think you had your initial electrics. And by the way, we used some of all. Did you hear that in the final part?
I did. Yeah. I think that's the interesting thing about remote recording. And unfortunately, I've been a part of a lot of remote recording, and a lot of the time that's not go well. You just send pieces and you're like, I hope whatever is added to this is good. And so when I was hearing it for the first, like literally the first time, like Liz was saying, I was like, oh, this is great. Like, this is like, my heart can like just enjoy it. Like, I don't have to like freak out about it. But yeah, like I think this was the song that had the most like electric back and forth. And I actually have the session up here too. So if you ever want me to share my screen, I've got
We're gonna have you share your screen in just a second. That's exactly what I want. So here's what happened. First of all, every session he sent over was incredible. The first one was very Lincoln Brewstery. It actually reminded me of like the first little EP I ever did called Fill This Place. And there's like this Lincoln grunge lead line, and you know, there's just that kind of electric. If you know Lincoln, you know the style. And it was great. It sounded great. And I went back to him. I said, I'm wanting more of like this John Mayer, Ben Rector, Shane and Shane, almost like Motown in some sense, electric. And then he threw that back on. And then I think we did one more pass. But let me read a text that Jesse said, because this is so awesome. And for anybody listening who like wants to be involved in music and recording, or like Nashville, this is the type of mentality that you got to have. I love this. So Jesse says, I think the thing that Nashville has taught me so well is to literally just be the hands and feet of the artist. I want to serve the song. That's amazing. That's an amazing thing. The hands and feet of the artist serving the song. And then you talked about, you know, when you're doing, especially probably remote in some sense, it's like playing with musical Legos, you said. First of all, that's profound, and then beautiful in imagery and really playful. So, I mean, talk to me about like your experience in having to do those types of things and projects.
Yeah. So I've kind of like, touring was my main thing for a long time. And over the last few years, I kind of stepped away from mainly touring and getting into this recording world. And so the main differences I see in the recording world versus like playing for artists live is there's a meticulousness that I had to learn. Whereas in live stuff, a lot of times if you bring the energy, it doesn't matter because the people are hearing it one time and it's like, man, that was awesome. And so like the Lego thing and really like putting together a puzzle, it's like there's more than just like playing a part. In fact, there's not one single guitar that I did all the way through the song. Like I actually like did verse. What does the verse need? What does the chorus need? What does the bridge need? What parts, what frequency ranges am I representing here? And like, so it's like all these different things are like Legos to me. And I actually even color my sessions like colorful things so I know what frequency ranges are represented and where they're popping in and out. So yeah, like the whole Legos thing, it really feels like that to me when I'm like putting together guitar tracks for people, because it's like, yeah, it's not just the energy that I used to be able to just play a cool lick. It's like that's going to be heard over and over and over. So if that lick wasn't good enough for the moment, or good enough for every moment after that, like it's not going to go in the project. And so yeah, it's been a learning experience for sure. And like, yeah, serving the song is a big thing as far as musicians go here. Like even for live, like it's like that's just in general thing, like learning how to on a Sunday morning or a concert or a gig, take what the song is supposed to be doing and serving that purpose. So obviously the vocal is always key in every like worship song and in every song really. So what is the message? What is that trying to accomplish? And then, being the helper to get that done.
Well, both you and Liz, I mean, really honed that craft. It's easy to work with people who can leave their ego at the door. And you two are great examples of that. Quick shout out, by the way, and then we're going to have Jesse share his screen. You can see a little bit of what this type of a project looks like. But I came across your ebook from several years ago. What is it, like 100 tips on, give it to me one more time?
Session and touring, like musician stuff. Like it's everything from rehearsals to what to pack to
it's like
how to prepare.
It's amazing. It's like these 100 small little one-liners with like 2 or 3 sentences under each. And it's really good. Like it's great.
Thanks,
so
man.
If you guys are, it's a great pickup. Just go get the ebook, look it up.
Wow. Totally forgot about that. So thanks.
Awaken, deep cuts, deep tracks, ebooks from years ago. I got you guys. But these aren't like just shameless plugs. I mean it. This is good stuff. Jesse, share your screen with us. Let's see what you're working with and help people see what happens when you're recording.
Yeah. So I think I'm sharing.
I gotta give you permission, maybe? No, there you go. Perfect.
Is it there? I don't know what you're seeing. Are you seeing this track? Okay. So kind of here, you're seeing my bass tracks and my guitar tracks up here. And then at the very bottom is the reference track that Dave was mentioning of just acoustic and vocal. And thankfully, since Liz laid down things first, I was able to kind of get like a dynamic for where it should go. And so then I laid basses down for each of the songs. And so I've got these tracks right here are all my bass takes. And you can see in each thing I do different things and comp them together so they turn into one one thing here. So even though it's just one track, there are 5 different 5 different passes basically that went into that one track. But yeah, I've got like little solo things, rhythms. I like labeling things too. I don't know if it's just like an OCD thing or whatever, but I like labeling things so that if the mix engineer or producer is getting tracks from me, they know, one, is it a chorus thing? Is it a verse thing? Like, what is this? And then where to pan it, and then also kind of what it is. So you'll see here like outro groove left and outro groove right, or bridge acoustic pluck left. They know where it's at, what it is, and what it's doing, and where to pan it. So it's just kind of what I enjoy doing. And then like all these up here, I color it like the rainbow. Like reds are kind of like the higher like lead stuff, where at the bottom these like indigos and purples are the really low notes, the bass stuff. And so then I just kind of fill in each of these gaps, and I need each of the colors represented to really fill it out. And yeah, anyway, these are the things I get nerdy about, but I could go on all night about that.
And by the way, you guys, again, you can check out Jesse on Instagram and YouTube, and he has a lot of videos that like walk through tracking and a lot of these types of things, and that are really, really helpful if you're a musician looking to cut and record. And what's amazing too, Jesse, is I'm looking at all this. This is simply, I mean, you have down the bottom Liz's tracks and my first rough tracks, right?
Yeah.
And then everything above that are Jesse's basses, electrics. There's a couple acoustic licks, and then that gets sent to Josh Wood, who we'll talk to tomorrow, who just has a 3-week headache.
Yeah.
You know, mix it. Now, Liz, have you ever been involved in any mixing or production?
Oh, for sure. And it's a process. I mean, I can't imagine being the one that hasn't tracked those, you know, those stems and then having to receive all of it. Because same with drums, it's like at least 10 tracks that you're getting. A lot of times it's like 10, anywhere from 10 to like 30 stems for a drum track.
And you actually, with Psalm 100, the song that we did last night, we came back to you with that one too, and asked you to do, I think, the rim shot or the snare hit like on a later beat too. But that was another perfect example of, you know, Liz serving the song, and, you know, this story to my heart as an artist with this. We were looking for a very specific feel, and just to be able to have the humility and the engagement in the project to be able to turn those things around fast. I mean, people don't realize this. You guys turned these around fast. Is that usual?
You know, I think that's just kind of a thing that, at least I know this is Jesse's heart too. Like, we want to be efficient because we know that, especially for a project like this, like, you're working with needing everyone to function on all cylinders. You know, you need everyone firing back because you have so many layers to work through from a management standpoint. And I know that if I delay my part, that delays Jesse, that delays Josh, that delays your mixing and mastering. You know, like, it really just, like, it will push a project back by weeks if one of us are just a couple of days behind. And so, you know, just really wanting to do whatever we could in order to be upfront with communication and say, yeah, I can turn this around in 3 days, or, you know, I'm on the road right now, but as soon as I get back, I'm going to be able to knock this out, you know?
Do you guys remember when we started this project? Was it like September, October?
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you had reached out over text.
I think we had hoped. Yeah, I think we had hoped to have it released on Thanksgiving.
Yes.
And actually we could have, but we would have settled on the mixing side.
I remember being stressed out for like Josh receiving my stems.
Yeah.
Because I had to go to Lynchburg. Actually, I was producing a project, like a live worship.
That's right.
There. And so like I was leaving the next day, and he was like, "Hey, can I get these things done?" I'm like, "Oh, dude, like, I'm so sorry. I'm about to send you like 20 stems, and that's partially why labeling is such a big deal, because it's like, if he can see this is an acoustic for the bridge and it's pan left, that's going to make his job a little easier, but it's still overwhelming being like, yeah, literally I tracked 34 stems for him just for guitar and bass for that one song. And so multiply that over multiple songs. And like, man, I remember being like, Thanksgiving, I'll be praying. I think I called him, actually. I called Josh and was like, dude, I'm praying for you. Like, this is
You're the best.
If you need anything, let me know. But
I remember calling him and saying, hey, do we need to send your wife flowers? Maybe Haley can throw her head in tomorrow. But I do remember Josh calling me like the week before Thanksgiving or something and saying like, hey, we just need to crush your expectations and throw it in the trash. We cannot have this out by Thanksgiving. And I think that his biggest sigh of relief was for me to say, yeah, I think you're right. I mean, obviously there's disappointment when things don't, come at the time that you want them. You have a plan, but who cares? The Lord's in control of all that. And we can sit back here and honestly, here we are several months after we wanted to originally release them. And I think we can all go, man, it was worth putting in the time and being patient and waiting. And sure. especially when you're doing like the mixing and mastering, people don't realize, fresh ears are so important. And if you're sitting there mixing for hours and hours and hours, you're just in a dull phase. Your ears hurt, your mind hurts. You can't hear stuff anymore. And you've really got to be able to have time to step away from the entire thing. Yep.
Yeah. And it takes a mature, to Josh's credit, it takes a mature engineer to say, hey, I'm not going to be able to give you the best effort that I know I can. Yep. Because I feel like a lot of guys can easily just throw on the plugins, throw things together and try to make it according to the formula that they know works or they know has worked in the past. And, for Josh to have come to you and said, hey, man, like, I know I can do better than what I'm going to give you if I give this to you by Thanksgiving. Like, that takes a lot too. And I love that there was that type of open communication in this entire process,
For sure.
Big time. Well, I have a couple questions. I want to also give a shout out when we talk about Psalm 98. Justin Kinsel killed it with the video. Oh man, that was good. I'm a font guy. He is the font guy. You guys remember this from Liberty days. I mean, when he would do all that, it's like one thing I can't wait to talk about Justin, about his little font affair. I mean, it's like you can show him a font and he knows what it is. Just incredible. This guy's amazing. But the video, didn't it come out so good?
Totally. I loved it.
Really good. And that was his wife. My second favorite part on this track is Ashley, the end of the bridge. When she's actually, there's a dissonance. If you listen really hard, she has notes right next to each other. And then that just like Josh sent it out with this reverb that carries out with this big cut band wise coming into this drum chorus. And it's the bomb. It's just so good. Yeah. But they did a phenomenal job. Ashley, I mean, I've missed hearing Ashley sing, and to have her on this album with us was so good. You're going to get to hear Ashley a lot more in these next 3 songs. So she sings a verse, at least a verse, and some of verse and chorus in the next 3 nights songs. And actually tomorrow night's song is just Justin and Ashley vocally. And then the final 2 nights, all 3 of us collaborated together on those last 2 songs to sing. And so it's really exciting. All right. A couple questions that I've received. One would be, okay, we'll start with you, Jesse. What is your favorite track on this album, this EP?
Honestly, I think it was this one. Just because the back and forth, the figuring it out, like the Lego pieces. I think electrics wise, it was one of the most fun to play on.
It's good too.
Yeah, I'd have to, I know it's a cop out because we just listened to it. But yeah, definitely it was more fun to track on this, I think, than I think the others were fun too. This one by a hair.
My favorite electric guitar one is How Great Is Your Glory. That'll come out on Wednesday night. But that's my favorite electric one. Yep. What about you, Liz? Favorite track that you cut on this album?
There were so many different approaches to every single song. Like, I remember one being like, I'm going to lay down 2 separate layers of drums and see how that overlaps one another. But And then there were some where it was just like, this needs to be minimalistic and just like simple and easy, you know? But I would say probably this one too for me.
Yeah.
Like it
Yeah.
just felt good. It was just so fun. And rhythm wise, like I felt like it was fun to kind of just dream through it with Jesse and be like, let's just have fun with it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just felt great.
The makeup of the song is a little interesting too. I mean, it's, you know, depending on who you talk to, it's either genius or brutal. But you have like verses, pre-choruses, which are also kind of choruses, then a chorus and like a second chorus in the bridge. There's so many different factors. Like you have the typical verse, and then it'll sing the Lord, sing a new song. Then you have the make a joyful noise, but then there's this like alternate chorus at the end that's almost an outro, sing a new song to the Lord. So, and each has its own unique grouping with all the instrumentation. It's just really wonderful. You guys did a great job. How about this for a song, or how about this for a question? I think that was Kayleen Hooper's. I'm going to go through all these, and this is where we're going to end here just a little bit. But I had one question for you before we get to these. What is, and Liz, we'll start with you. What is the favorite track you've ever played on? Your favorite track you've ever helped cut? Yeah.
I don't have an answer to that. I really
Do you
don't,
have a few?
it's all, oh my gosh. I just remember it based off of the last thing that I've done. And to be honest, when I'm tracking, a lot of times I'm terrified. A lot of times when I'm tracking, I'm like, oh, I don't know how this is going to turn out. Kind of like getting to hear the mastered version tonight of this song. I was like, whoa, this sounds amazing. And it's not until like it releases months after I've tracked where I'm like, oh my gosh, like somebody worked magic. Is that still our tracks that are on the final thing, you know?
Right.
A lot of times I'll be like, that couldn't have been my tracks, you know, they must have replaced it with something else, just because, you know, a lot of times the mixer or the masterer will just do such amazing things to it and transform the song into something that's like 10 times ahead of what I ever dreamed of it to be. So that said, I have no idea.
Well, Liz and Jesse both have played with some amazing people, incredibly talented people. And so it's probably all just mush in your brain. You've played on so many tracks with so many people. Jesse, can you think of any song that you've just loved being a part of?
There are two. Our church did one, and Liz was actually on this track too. God Turn It Around was a song our church did, and I love the song and the energy in the room. It was a live recording, so like the energy in the room was a bunch of fun. Pre-production was a bunch of fun. That whole process was great. And then a second one also from our church, but it was from our student ministry. We did a record with city students, and it's a song called Banner, and I played guitars and overdubbed some bass stuff here and there. But the textures that I built on that song were some of the most fun that I've worked on, just because there are a bunch of reverse guitar things in there, and there are like 5 lead lines for every single part. So like playing it live was really difficult, because you're like, which one should I play live? But that one was a lot of fun on guitar. So that's one on bass and one on guitar.
God Turn It Around and Banner. I've seen your YouTube video of you playing bass on God Turn It Around.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great song. But Banner, I'll go look up.
Yeah, City Students is the artist, I guess, that it would be under.
City Students. And okay, God Turn Around.
Actually, if you're looking it up, I think Fame and Deeds was probably a little more guitar heavy. The mix on Banner, they pulled back some of the guitars because there were so many layers. But you can hear a lot of the reverse stuff on Fame and Deeds. But anyway, yeah.
Okay, Liz, I know you have like 5 more minutes, right? And then you got to get into a rehearsal. Is that about right?
That's right.
Okay. So which do you prefer? Do you like to play live, or do you like to record? Or do they each have their own perks?
Yeah, to me, they each have their own perks, but I think for me, live just a hair more, I prefer. I love the energy of it, and I honestly love the creative process of responding to what the audience is sensing and feeling, and really like especially in the environment of, you know, doing praise and worship music, like there is something that I think happens in the room where it's almost like, from a musician standpoint and from a like worship leader standpoint, it's almost like a tangible thing that takes place where you
Yep.
just know what the room needs and what people are like, how the Lord is ministering to people individually. And there's something about that that just gets me fired up, you know. Not to say in the studio, it's a completely different approach. It's like how do we make this into something that kind of builds layers on top of one another, and then like the big picture is kind of seen and multiple things are put under that, you know. In the live setting, it's kind of like flexing and ebbing and flowing as things go along. So it's a little bit, in my brain, the studio thing is more like this. In a live environment, it's more like this. You know, you're kind of viewing the room and looking across to see what's needed rather than building on layers.
And it really is a good and necessary thing, right? So even in corporate worship, I mean, you want to have order, you want to honor the Lord in the structure, but just as if you were sitting across the table from a friend who's hurting, like you're responding also to the needs of your brother or your sister. And it is the same type of thing. And it's a necessary thing that honestly we sometimes too quickly avoid for several different reasons in a corporate setting where you have like, I remember one time, Liberty University. This was one of the poor experiences I had there. I was at a campus service on like a Wednesday night. Meredith Andrews just finished singing "I Get on My Knees," the Jackie Velasquez song. You remember that song?
Mm-hmm.
I think it was Jackie Velasquez. She just finished singing it. Well, listen, like there were like people flooding down, just praying. People are weeping. People are moved. And it's one of those moments where you're like, we just have to wait. I know this wasn't planned, but David McKinney, why don't you just keep playing piano for a little bit? We can have some RAs and spiritual life directors just be praying for people. And so you're just anticipating that. And then the pastor is speaking that night, literally just on cue, walks up, grabs a mic, says, "Well, how's everybody doing tonight?" And you're just like, no, don't do that. So I so resonate with what you just said, that, you know, you're reading the room, you're reading people. There's a book, you guys may have read it because you're Nashville people. I know I have it here somewhere. It's called Adorning the Dark by Andrew Peterson. It just came out a little bit ago. Andrew Peterson, obviously the guy who wrote Is He Worthy? I definitely have it here somewhere. But anyways, he mentions, like, even in like a concert setting, that the audience, like, you be engaged, respond to what the person is doing. Like, it's just even respectful, but it's so necessary. And there's a sense in which even the musicians or the leaders, it helps them. And that's not in an egotistical, it's all about me kind of way. It's just reality. Yeah. Live too, Jesse?
So cop out answer, both. Like, live recording is my favorite. And so whether I'm playing or producing, I don't have to be playing anything, even planning for live recordings and being like, this moment would be cool to sit in, or this, like, these little things would be cool to just see what happens if we do this. Like, that's my favorite. So both. Yes. And
I love it. Liz, I want to be faithful to your time. And I just want to thank you guys again. I think we've had the people who have been watching stay the entire time. That's a testimony to your thoughtful responses. And I mean, seriously, this has been wonderful. I'm so grateful for your participation. You know, I announced last night, you know, the hopes for the Psalm 119 project and video form that we're going to try to do later this year, and already trying to finish some writing and get ready for a hymns album. Actually, I have to send you, I sent it to Justin, but I'll send you the scratch track, the demo for that Josh and I put together. It's really exciting. Of a hymn that we'd like to record. Actually, we'll probably cut it as a single before we do the album. So I'll send that to you guys tonight, and you guys can listen to it. But it's called A Precious Hope for Wandering Sheep. It's gonna be a great song. We're excited to share that with people. We're gonna start singing it at my church really soon. Thank you guys so much. I'm gonna give some announcements here in a second, but any closing words, Jesse or Liz?
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for the honor of being a part of this type of project, you know, and I'm excited to see where it goes and what we're able to come up with in the future as well.
Amen. May the Lord bless both of you, and Liz too, praying for that open door of ministry and helping people. We're so excited for that. Have a great rehearsal. We're so excited. For everybody else who's still here, just a reminder that tomorrow night we have Josh Wood. The same thing. We're doing a live premiere of Come to the Souls, who now has made the first hymn on our album. That will be shared. That's at 8 o'clock. We'll send out the link for that. And then Josh Wood, who had to do all the stuff that Jesse just showed and deal with all that and deal with me more than anybody else. He'll be on with us tomorrow night, right after, for a live discussion. Wednesday night, we're revealing How Great Is Your Glory, featuring Justin and Ashley Kinsel with me, and Dr. Kreider is going to do a live discussion afterwards with me. And then the final night, Thursday night, will be with Justin and Ashley Kinsel. Listen, you're not going to want to miss any of these nights. Just so cool that we get to have all these conversations. And I can't wait for Thursday song. It's my favorite song on the album. And then the album is released to all major media platforms on that Friday, this Friday at like midnight that morning, Thursday night. You can pre-order right now for $4.99 on iTunes, which is about $2.50 cheaper than if you wait. It helps to support us to be able to continue to create content. And so if you guys would like these videos, share these lyric videos, subscribe to the channel, all that type of stuff, go subscribe to Jesse's channel, like his videos. It helps support us creating content. We love you guys so much. Thanks for tuning in tonight. Jesse, you're the man. Are you kidding me? So good. We'll talk.